A stack of cash scattered across the pavement, and the crowd gasped. In the next second, a guard swiftly grabbed the tourist and pinned him to the ground. Laughter instantly turned to silence, and cameras shifted focus to the arrest. But what happened next shocked everyone. But let's start from the very beginning. This channel won't survive without your subscription and likes. Help me! London was packed with tourists, but one man stood out from the crowd, a classic 45-year-old American. He was tall, had reddish hair, and wore a t-shirt that read, "America First," baggy jeans and white sneakers. In one hand, he held a burger. In the other, a massive stack of British pounds wrapped in a rubber band. "Let's make this interesting," he declared loudly, waving the cash. His name was Bobby McGinty. He had come to London to feel like a king and was convinced that British traditions were nothing but a joke. Bobby stepped in front of a royal guard, a tall, fair-skinned Brit dressed in a red uniform with a bearskin hat. "All right, buddy," Bobby smirked. "Guess how much is in here, and I'll give you half." The guard stood motionless, unresponsive. Tourists around them started recording on their phones, sensing something unusual was about to unfold. The crowd came to life, as if they had suddenly found themselves in the middle of a theatrical performance. Some people chuckled, while others shook their heads in disbelief, but all eyes were fixed on the scene unfolding in front of Buckingham Palace. "Does he seriously think he can buy him?" An elderly British woman in an elegant coat whispered, gripping the handle of her black umbrella a little tighter. A businessman standing nearby narrowed his eyes, studying the smug grin on the American's face. "Typical Yank. Thinks money can buy anything." But Bobby didn't seem to notice that his little stunt was irritating most of the onlookers. He was absolutely convinced of his charm and his brilliant idea. With a dramatic flourish, he tossed the stack of banknotes into the air. The money flew up, swirling in the light breeze like autumn leaves, before scattering across the pavement. A few bills landed right at the guard's feet. The crowd gasped. "Well, buddy?" Bobby grinned, relishing his joke. "Maybe you should switch jobs if you want to make more cash?" For a few tense seconds, silence fell over the square. No one knew what to expect. Tourists glanced at each other uncertainly. Some had their phones out, already recording, anticipating that something exciting was about to happen. And indeed, there was a reaction, but not from the guard. A few people from the crowd lunged at the money, snatching bills off the ground. Two teenagers in hoodies grabbed a couple of notes and darted away, elbowing their way through the crowd. A man in a baseball cap bent down but immediately froze under the disapproving gaze of a nearby elderly lady, awkwardly shoving his hands into his pockets. "This is just disgraceful," a middle-aged woman muttered, holding her young daughter's hand. "What kind of behavior is this?" But Bobby just smirked, thoroughly enjoying the spectacle. The guard, as expected, didn't move an inch. His face remained as unreadable as a statue's. Bobby frowned. He had been sure he'd get some kind of reaction. Maybe a twitch at the corner of the lips? A slight tilt of the head? Anything. But there was nothing. The American took a step closer, glanced around, then stared at the guard again, amused. "Seriously? Not even a blink?" No response. Someone in the crowd chuckled. Someone else shook their head. Bobby bit his lip. This wasn't going according to plan. At first, the crowd had treated Bobby's stunt as a humorous spectacle, but now the atmosphere had shifted. The laughter had died down. People were no longer watching the American with curiosity, but with clear disapproval. Whispering turned into quiet but indignant remarks. "This is too much," muttered a man in a sharp gray suit, crossing his arms. "He really thinks he can buy anyone, even a man in uniform?" An elderly woman with silver hair added, clutching her cane. "Such disrespect," a young mother snapped, pulling her child closer. The little girl in a pink coat watched the scene with wide eyes, sensing the adult's unease but not understanding why. Yet Bobby seemed oblivious to the fact that his performance had stopped being funny. He was too caught up in his own brilliant joke. He bent down, picked up one of the bills from the pavement, twirled it between his fingers, and smirked. "Well, since you're so proud of your job, let me help you earn a little bonus." The crowd held its breath. With a smug grin, Bobby reached forward, and before anyone could stop him, he stuffed the bill into the guard's pocket. The gasp that followed wasn't just from the crowd. It felt as if even the air had frozen for a moment. People exchanged stunned glances. This wasn't just disrespect anymore. This was humiliation. "Dear God, he's completely lost it," murmured a woman in a green coat, turning away in disgust. "What a disgrace." A man beside her muttered under his breath. But Bobby wasn't listening. He stood with his arms crossed, pleased with himself, and chuckled. "Well, now you've got a reason to smile, buddy." The guard didn't move. But what happened next, no one saw coming. It happened so fast that no one had time to process it. The guard, who had been motionless just a second ago, suddenly raised his arm and grabbed Bobby's shoulder in an iron grip. A powerful move, and in an instant, the American was flipped and pinned to the ground, his face smacking against the cold stone pavement. "Stay where you are," the guard's thunderous voice boomed. The crowd gasped. The same people who had been whispering and exchanging glances just moments ago now stood frozen in shock. Some had their mouths open in disbelief, while others instinctively pulled out their phones and hit record. Bobby's stack of cash flew from his hands, scattering across the pavement. A few bills fluttered into the air, but no one even attempted to grab them. Every single gaze was locked onto the scene unfolding before them. Within seconds, 2 more figures rushed in, another royal guard and 2 police officers. It was as if they had been waiting for this moment. "What the hell?" Bobby shrieked, trying to struggle, but his wrists were already yanked behind his back. The cold bite of handcuffs snapped around his wrists with a metallic click. "You are being detained for disorderly conduct near a protected site," a police officer announced firmly. "Any resistance will only make things worse for you." The crowd stood paralyzed. The laughter was gone. The very people who had been filming Bobby to mock his antics were now capturing something entirely different. The moment of his arrest. "Hey, come on! It was just a joke!" Bobby shouted, twisting to look over his shoulder. But a firm hand pressed his shoulder down, keeping him in place. "Jesus, I just threw some money." But now, no one was laughing. A tense silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of cameras clicking and phones recording. There was shock in people's eyes, but no sympathy. Now they weren't seeing a goofy American tourist. They were seeing a man who had crossed the line and paid the price instantly. Meanwhile, headlines had already started appearing on social media. "American tourist tries to buy royal guard, instantly regrets it."